Today I'm going to be watching this video. It's called Why Norway is Insanely Well Designed. I've been watching a lot of videos about Norway, a lot of very positive videos about the economy, just the way of life in Norway. Seems like a great place to live, and I thought this one would be interesting. How it's insanely well designed. I'm not sure what this is in relation to, if it's the infrastructure of the country. I have no clue really. Let's watch and we can find out. You can tell me what you think about this video.
This is Norway's massive $47 billion investment to revolutionize this road, the E39, and turn it into an engineering masterpiece. When completed, E39 will span uninterrupted for 1100 kilometers and bridge between the cities of Kristiansand and Trondheim, reducing travel time in half. This will be done by removing the 8 ferry crossings that any traveler must now endure to go up north.
So they're going to remove the ferry crossings, or will they still occur even when that road or that road is in place? I've got to say, I love that sort of forward thinking, implementing that sort of infrastructure. Being from the UK, I feel like we're very stagnant when it comes to growing our infrastructure. We don't really think about the future. When we do, everything's always overpriced and just not really fit for purpose. This looks like a great thing that really connects a lot of the country, but are they going to remove those ferry crossings as well?
Part of this investment will be used to build what will then be the world's longest and deepest road tunnel, the Rockfast underwater tunnel. It will enter the Bay of Bergen with a length of 27 kilometers and is scheduled to open by 2026. But this is just the tip of the iceberg of Norway's incredible design, quality of infrastructure and human development. When you consider the brutal terrain that Norway has to tame to build a sustainable and efficient transportation system like fjords, frozen waters, waterfalls, and harsh winter temperatures, it makes moving people and goods in Norway a great challenge. And the Norwegians have found a unique way to overcome this challenge: diversification. See, having a country that is this diverse in terrain means incredible amounts of efficient and flexible infrastructure is required, and the Norwegians have mastered the craft of exploiting the peculiar terrain of each region. From the busy industrial plains in the south, where the capital Oslo is located, to the western fjords that can reach the 550-meter depth of the Bjarnefjorden right on the E39 path, to the thin land corridor that brings all the way up to the Arctic Circle and the northernmost point of continental Europe. So diversification is key and is achieved through 4 pillars: roads, railways, ferries, and airports.
Yeah, so tell me how you think about those areas within Norway. Are they all of the highest quality? Are any of them not up to a standard that you believe? Again, comparing to the UK, where I think all of these things could definitely do with a major update. In Scotland, we tried to build ferries and they were just a disaster. The airports are not fit for purpose. The railway is old and aging. The roads, we have good road coverage in the UK, but again, it could do with updating as well. How is it in Norway? And when you see that image, the road that goes across all those little islands, I mentioned on a previous video, it was a real, an excellent feat of engineering. How is the engineering in Norway? Do you have a high standard of engineers? Are you an engineer? Do you know any? Are they very well educated and good at what they do?
Compare maps of the 4, you see resources and infrastructures are allocated in a genius way. Railway serves the busiest population centers, mainly in the south.
Let me just have a look at that again, sorry, just have a... let's see.
Railway serves...
So I mean, the interesting thing you've got to contend with is the shape of Norway. It's very unique, obviously, compared... I mean, the other northern European countries have similar, very long countries, especially when you get to the north, which you have to take the climate into consideration. The landscapes here are going to be a lot different to the ones in the south as well. But you can see amazing coverage of all these sort of things, roads and the airports, very spread evenly throughout the country. Actually, you can see from these images it is very well designed. I guess this is the train, just goes right up the edge of the country as well. So maybe not as much coverage through the middle of the country there, but everything, yeah, seems to be more on the edge. You got this one that goes through the middle. quite beautiful to look at these images.
The busiest population centers, mainly in the south, with a total of 4,237 kilometers. In this spirit, Norway's dubbed largest infrastructure project up to date is on its way. This is the Follo Line project, connecting Oslo to the neighboring public transportation hub of Ski, 125 meters above sea level. It will be an underground, double-track, high-speed railway of 22 kilometers, transporting people in and out of the capital, day and night, 20 hours a day. When it comes to their roads though, they provide fast connections among the main population centers and serve the needs of people living mainly inland. Now, roads in Norway are equally impressive with a...
Yeah, I mean, those two images on their own are so impressive. You don't have to be an engineering fan to just think that just looks so satisfying, and again, an amazing feat of engineering. Just beautiful to look at again.
Norway are equally impressive, with a grand total of almost 94,000 paved kilometers and more than 1,000 tunnels. They're even giving Switzerland a run for their money. What's more, even the most remote corners of the country are well served by 52 active airports. Just to put this into perspective, Norway has a population of just 5 million people, and the UK, with 68 million people, only has 49 airports.
That's exactly what I said. I can only compare to the UK because that's where I'm from. But Norway seems so much further advanced, even though we've had these things for so long. We have less airports than Norway. And what I mentioned before, I just love the coverage as well. It's not like most of the airports are in the southern part of Norway. It's really spread throughout, so everybody, no matter where you live in Norway, has access to air travel as well.
In Norway, air transport is a big deal, and you can see why when looking at the breathtaking landscapes as you approach the Arctic Circle and the sheer size of the country. A great number of airports are necessary. Just consider this: among the 11 busiest airline passenger routes in Europe, Norway holds 4.
Wow,
They
I never
all
knew.
depart from Oslo toward Trondheim, Bergen, Stavanger and Tromsø. But of course, the most iconic means of transport in Norway is the ferry.
Okay, I want to learn more about the ferry. Tell me more about the airlines. What's the best airline in Norway? All these ones going from Oslo to the other parts of Norway, I guess obviously it's probably mostly Norwegians using it maybe for business, or I guess there's a lot of tourists going to these places as well. Tell me what it's like to fly on these journeys, these connections and things. Are the airlines good quality? The ferries I want to see because I love the look of things like this in these areas. These magnificent landscapes with the big ferries in there.
Sailing through the steep fjords of the western coast of the Norwegian Sea. See, nearly half the population of Norway lives on that coast, and a fourth of Norwegians living north of Trondheim are heavily dependent on maritime transport, especially for freight transportation of food and various goods.
That makes
Over
sense.
700 ports with 32 major hubs constellate the thousands of fjords that make up the coastline. Each of these transportation networks is impressive per se, but the true ace up Norway's sleeve is flexibility achieved through diversification. Norway's terrain is very diverse, and people have very different needs when it comes to moving passengers and goods. With a country like this, it doesn't make sense to just put your bets on a single horse. I mean, this is a population density map of Norway. It's not particularly dense. Let's compare this with the distribution of railways, roads, ferries, and airports. Trains connect the main cities of the southern plateau, with great insistence on the capital city, Oslo. Roads fill in the spaces between the main lines and make sure that everybody is served inland. Airports make it possible to reach remote population centers, for instance here, here, and here. Lastly, ferries navigate the challenging western coast on which roughly half of all Norwegians live. Norway is so well designed and efficient because its peculiarities are integrated into one cohesive and organic system. And
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's very cohesive. They have all this, like, again, as I said, very diverse terrain, diverse country, all covered by these different modes of transport, but it's all working in tandem very well.
all of this is done with great attention to sustainability and environment protection. Norway is already ranked as one of the greenest countries in the world. But Norway does not plan to stop there. Through governmental incentives and a whopping 98% of Norway's energy coming from renewable sources, almost 80% of car sales in Norway was purely electric cars in
Wow.
2022. which makes it the highest share of electric cars on the roads of any country in the world. Oda, the company that covers public transportation in Oslo, has set a goal to make Norway's capital's transportation grid completely emission-free by 2028.
Yeah, tell me more about that as well, because obviously a lot of countries are trying to implement electronic vehicles as the main mode of car or motor transport, but there's a lot of pushback in a lot of countries. Again, comparing to the UK, a lot of people are fighting against it. They want to keep petrol cars. And the biggest problem that people have is the lack of infrastructure for charging. How is the charging infrastructure in Norway? Is there a lot of coverage? Is there a lot of charging points? I guess because so many people are buying these cars, there must be, but tell me, how is the access to that?
But it's not just Oslo or the other major cities of the country. Since 2021, there are more than 60 fully electric or hydroelectric ferries operating along the western fjords, both for passenger and freight use. While Norway is actively exploring ways to make this important part of their transportation ecosystem even greener through eco-friendly marine fuels such as ammonia and hydrogen, the private and public sectors in Norway have established a joint green marine shipping program to create synergies in this sector. In mid-2022, Yara Birkeland, the first ever zero-emission autonomous freight ship, entered into operation and promises to put out of the sea 40,000 diesel-powered commercial journeys per year. As I've mentioned, Norway's energy supply system is one of the striking ways in which sustainability, flexibility, and efficiency get to go so hand in hand there. What's fascinating to me is that Norway is the top producer of electricity per capita in the world, with more than 27,500 kilowatt hours per person produced in 2021. For reference, the US produced a mere 12,314 kilowatt hours. The reason is simple. Norway is one of the biggest consumers of electricity per capita in the world. And as you might expect, to power such an efficient and well-connected country in such harsh geographical conditions, you need a ton of electricity. And amazingly, 98% of Norway's energy is completely green.
That's fantastic. All these eco-friendly implementations of transport and just in day-to-day life for people, for how the electricity is generated, is fantastic. A great example for every other country in the world. All these countries are trying to move towards this sort of green produced energy, but struggling for various reasons. But Norway, not only does it have a great economy, a great way of life, not only does it have amazing transport coverage, it's all done so eco-friendly as well. It's quite amazing, really. What about the cost of electricity? Is the electricity cost high in Norway after producing all this like this?
88% of this comes from Norway's water sources through 1,681 hydropower plants and an impressive 10% from wind power. However, a great country's infrastructure does not only take place on Earth. Did you know that Norway was the first non-English speaking country to be connected to the net via the US-based ARPANET framework? Well, since 1999, Norway has generally been regarded as having one of the most developed telecommunications infrastructures in the world, ranging from the quality of phone signal and usage to the share of people actively using online services. This all comes from the context of the Norwegian government pledging to make access to media and the internet even more open and efficient by becoming one of the leading countries in the adoption of AI technology. The way Norway can actually do this, though, is the interesting part, as it has to do with money. See, Norway enjoys one of the highest GDP per capita in the world and was ranked first in the Human Development Report of 2019. The World Economic Forum crowned Norway as the most inclusive economy in the world, meaning that it has an impressive capacity to provide growth over decades across different sectors and creating jobs for the general population. This is quite different from just hoarding wealth from natural resources and leaving it to rot away, and it shows. While we all know that Scandinavian countries on average top many international economic and social rankings, Norway has an advantage that sets it apart from its neighbors Sweden and Denmark, despite the fact that until 1814, Denmark and Norway were under the same country. Remember how 98% of Norway's energy supply comes from renewable sources. You would probably be surprised to learn that at the same time, Norway is the second largest oil producer in Europe and the 11th largest in the world, producing roughly double that of the UK. This is because Norway is absolutely blessed by the number of oil rigs in its exclusive economic zone. This is a map of the oil reserves in the North Sea, and this is a map of those that fall within Norway's exclusive economic zone. As you can see, it's pretty lucrative to be Norway. But Norway is not using this oil themselves. Oh no. See, the Norwegian government devised a grand plan to find a better use for the Norwegian oil reserves than just exploiting it for immediate consumption. And Norway is unique in choosing not to consume the oil it digs up from the sea, at least primarily, as the barrels of oil are instead sold and the money generated is invested in very long-term, decade-long plans to pay for infrastructures and social services.
Wow, that must, even something like that must make people in Norway so proud that they have leaders or governments, whoever implements these decisions, to be so forward thinking, looking to the future. So many governments, politicians are so short-term thinking, maybe because they think they're not going to be in power for so long, so everything's so short-term focused. This is people putting the need of the country above themselves and like really looking to the future, really handling their resources so smartly, so intelligently.
When oil was first discovered in the North Sea in 1969, Norway set up the Government Pension Fund Global, which grew to become the largest sovereign wealth fund in the world and went well beyond fully funding the country's pension plan. The revenues from the oil extraction are invested in foreign companies and banks, generating an array of assets amounting to more than $1 trillion today. This huge patrimony funds a good portion of Norway's public expenditure, from pensions to social services and subsidies, to investments for harnessing its wild nature and powering Norway's incredible transportation grid. Being one of the largest oil producers in the world that benefits from its oil reserves while managing to build an environmentally friendly society is frankly genius. And this process has just recently got a new important step, as in 2021 the wealth fund officially sold out all shares held in oil and gas investments in a plea to support fully green policies. I think it's important to remember that Norway started off with very rough conditions, and before the discovery of oil, the country looked like this and had a GDP among the lowest in Europe. Yet the discovery of oil didn't corrupt them, like we've seen in other oil-rich nations. So Norway's journey to becoming incredibly well designed is an interesting one. But that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you.
Yeah, fantastic. So that's the biggest point that sort of occurred to me at the end there, is even though Norway has this access to oil, it's still using the proceeds of it for great things for Norway, and not just for Norway, for the rest of the world as well, being so eco-friendly, so green focused. Like it said, it could be easily corrupted like some of these other oil nations, and using it only to benefit the rich in the country, to benefit the politicians, the ruling classes. But they're not, they're trying to give the Norwegian people the best quality of life and do everything the right way. So yeah, why Norway is insanely well designed. I thought it was going to be just about infrastructure, but again, it's far more, it's further reaching than that. It's not just the design of the country, but just everything about the country is so positive. Tell me what you think about this one, and if you're from Norway, tell me how proud you are of your country. Thanks.